Places to spawn, or spawn points, are very important in a game like Hell Let Loose, where there's expansive battlefields and very limited ways to traverse said battlefields. It's important to know what spawn points are in the game that you can use at your disposal, but also know how to destroy them. So in this short little video, I'm going to talk about the different spawn points and how you can destroy them, as there are many different ways depending on what spawn point you are trying to destroy. Now, be forewarned, I will not be talking about the skirmish mode spawn points. I'll mostly be sticking to what's in offensive or warfare mode, just for this video. So before we get started, let's talk about the different spawns that can be made or built, depending on circumstance. You have outposts, which an officer or spotter can make. There are garrisons, for which the commander, officer, or spotter can build, depending if they have enough supplies to build it in their respective areas. Halftracks that the commander can call in using fuel. Airheads that the commander can call in using manpower, and also headquarters spawns that exist regardless of what side you're on and at the back of the maps. Now, I know headquarters spawns cannot be built, but they technically can be destroyed in a certain way, which we'll get to as we progress the video, so stay tuned for that. But for starters, let's start with outposts. So outposts are a squad level spawn point that officers for the infantry can spawn in for their troops, or spotters if you're a recon team. And they can be used or built every 120 seconds, provided that you don't remove the outpost beforehand to redeploy it elsewhere. But these only provide spawns for the squad that's attached to, whether you're an Alpha or Able, Baker, Charlie, whatever the case may be. It's only for that squad. The spawn cycle for outposts is 20 seconds, meaning people can spawn every 20 seconds and it's a constantly running clock. Now, when it comes to hunting or destroying OPs or outposts, they can be kind of hard to destroy, mostly because they're just small and hard to detect. You'll typically find these by accident rather than on purpose. Not saying you won't find them on purpose, though. But the easiest way to destroy outposts is simply walking up to it within 10 meters and destroying it. See here, I basically was just walking somewhat aimlessly and I just happened to find it. Now, a way you could find outposts, garrisons, or whatever spawn point is by looking for an ant trail or a trail of soldiers leaving a general area. Typically, there might be a spawn nearby. But if an OP or outpost is guarded, you do have other means to destroy it, such as using grenades, rocket launchers, Molotovs, and other little explosives that you have as the infantry to destroy outposts. The next spawn point we're going to talk about is the garrison. These are spawn points that the commander, officer, or spotter can put up, provided they have enough supplies. If they're in the blue zone, they need 50 supplies. If they're in the red zone, they need 100 supplies. Garrisons essentially act as a spawn point for anyone on your team to use, regardless of squad. Whether that's a tank commander, tank crew, recon, infantry, does not matter. Anyone can spawn on it every 40 seconds with a continuous timer always running. Garrisons, for the most part, across all factions will look very similar, with a table with a bunch of stuff on it, or with a radio set near it. Like the outpost and half-track, the garrisons will have a noise designator, where there will be radio chatter or a Morse code if you're playing the Russians. That way, if you get near them, you will hear these voices, and if you get close enough to them, they will act in a squelched manner or a static manner. That meaning you have blocked the spawns from coming in until you are cleared or until you clear the garrison. Speaking of how to destroy them, with garrisons you have a lot more options, but they are still slightly different than, say, outposts. For garrisons, you actually have to run up and manually destroy them if you don't have a rocket launcher, a Molotov, a flamethrower, or some sort of explosive that can take out the garrisons in question. Again, there'll be a list at the end that will outline everything that you can use to destroy these spawn points. But once you go up to them, the easiest way to do it is you go up, you'll see a prompt, you hold down your button that you need to, and you destroy it. Now, there is some differences between what it can take to destroy a garrison and how long it takes to destroy a garrison. We'll start off with talking about default garrisons in offensive mode. These are garrisons that are already placed on the map every time you play the offensive game mode that the defense team already has in place. These garrisons can spawn people in every 10 seconds with a constantly running clock. So people can spawn every 10 seconds, making them the fastest spawn in the game next to HQ spawns. Another aspect to take into account is if you're behind enemy lines. If you're more than 3 red squares in offensive mode as the attacking team, or on warfare mode, taking down garrisons will take you up to 30 seconds. While if you're playing on offensive and you're the defending team, any garrison in the enemy's red zone will take 30 seconds as well. This is just because you're behind the lines far enough that they take longer. There's no myth about them, such as the commander myth that if they build them that it takes longer. It's just simply where they're placed on the map. The main thing here though, take out these garrisons, you'll stop the enemy dead in its tracks. Next one I have, I'm sorry I don't really have any true good footage of it since it's kind of hard to do some of the stuff on console, but we have airhead spawns. These are spawns the commander can call in via the air to drop essentially where he needs them, whether on defense or on offense. And essentially these are great for getting behind the lines and flanking the enemy. Problem is it's coming from the air, so it can very easily seen, especially on the daytime maps. But if there's a lot of action going on, or it's a nighttime map, these can very easily slip behind the enemy lines and be used effectively. Airheads can be called in every 10 minutes, provided you have at least 400 manpower to deploy airheads. In terms of the spawn timer, airheads can spawn people in every 30 seconds for up to 3 minutes, as that's how long they're active for, equaling up to 6 spawn waves. In terms of destroying airheads, there's only 2 things that really can't destroy airheads: PTRS AT rifles and artillery. Everything from grenades to manually destroying them, bazookas, can destroy airheads. The commander can also call in half-tracks at the cost of 300 fuel, and you can have a maximum of 3 half-tracks. Half-tracks essentially are vehicles that you can deploy at your HQ and use them as another spawn, provided they are stationary and the engine is off. Half-tracks can also be used to ferry a couple troops in the battle as needed and has a gunner for a machine gunner, whether that be an MG42 or a 50 caliber machine gun, depending on what faction you're playing. Now the half-track, however, does have the longest spawn timer, as it is the cost of having a mobile spawn to begin with, that being 60 seconds of a constantly running clock. So every 60 seconds, a spawn wave can happen. Now the half-track is the only spawn point that cannot be destroyed by simply running up to it or having a manual prompt. You actually have to have some semblance of a rocket launcher, a tank round, or some sort of decent explosive that can actually take out a vehicle. Grenades won't cut it here. Now, like garrisons, however, and airheads, you can, if you are close enough, around 10 to 12 meters, can block the half-track spawn from happening. You'll know that you are blocking the spawn when you hear the static radio sounds. The last spawn I want to talk about, just at least for a little bit, is the HQ spawn. These are spawns that are at the back of the map that I have marked out here that can be used essentially all the time. They have a 10-second spawn timer and they can't be manually destroyed. But there is one way you can destroy at least one HQ, and that is if you're taking the HQ objective, or the objective within 2 squares containing the HQ. If you start to capture this objective, or have capture progress in general, the HQ will be locked out and you can't spawn on it. You can still spawn at the other 2 HQs that aren't closest to the objective, but the main one closest to the objective, whether that's the top, center, or bottom one, will be locked out depending on what the objective is that is being captured. Now, as promised, I wanted to put a list up of everything you used to destroy any of the spawn points, because in a pinch, using one of these different methods besides running up to an outpost or manually destroying a garrison or airhead might be more convenient than doing that, maybe using a rocket launcher. But on the outpost, the only things that can't destroy it are AT rifles or airstrikes, which is really weird, but I don't make the game. Garrisons, the only things that can't destroy it are grenades, AT rifles, and artillery. Airheads, you can't destroy it using PTRS or artillery, and the half-track, you can't manually destroy it or use grenades to destroy it. On the right, you have just where the alert areas where you have, okay, there's enemies near it, and when these spawns are blocked. I made a little edit earlier in the video correcting my half-track mistake, and then you have the cooldown timer between spawn waves for each of the spawn points. This overall may not be the most important video to be posting, and I do apologize for that. But it's still important to know the spawn points enough that in a pinch you know what to do with them and how to destroy them. Looking for those ant trails, listening for radio chatter, and just using any and all weapons to destroy them. By destroying a garrison with a lucky rocket shot, or a satchel charge, or tank round, can be what you need to truly push forward and win a match, let alone take an objective. But I hope you got something out of this video. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.